I'm Chase Briscoe, and this is The Skinny.
From the Fatheads Eyewear Studios in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny. Brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, General Tire, and Dream Giveaway. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by General Tire. It's more than just a slogan. Anywhere is possible with General Tire. General Tire's Grabber X3 mud terrain tire offers aggressive styling and is engineered for durability with innovative performance features that are ready to carry you through extreme mud, dirt, and rock-covered terrain. For extreme traction that's ready for anything and rugged styling to match, look no further than the Grabber X3. Make your anywhere possible by visiting GeneralTire.com today. Welcome to The Skinny. Ken Stout and Rico Elmore once again. And the beauty of living in Indianapolis is you never know who might stumble into the studio here at The Skinny. We've got a hot one for you now. 2016 ARCA champ. He was also a NASCAR Truck and Xfinity Rookie of the Year. But all of that notoriety pales in comparison because this, in 2021, his rookie season, he is without a doubt the hottest topic in NASCAR as it stands right now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the driver of the 14 car for Stewart Haas, Mr. Chase Briscoe.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome to have you in here, dude. Man, quite a weekend, my friend.
Yeah, it was a quiet weekend.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's what he said. I think he said quite.
Yeah, quite a weekend. Yeah. By the way, congratulations, obviously in your rookie season, but congratulations on the incredible qualifying effort. Starting on the outside pole, that's pretty awesome, dude.
Yeah, that was cool. You know, the first round, I felt like I left a little bit on the table, and I think we were second to Larson. And I felt like that final round, if I could just beat Kyle, and I knew I had a little bit left in the tank, and the tires were falling off about a quarter second. And I saw my lap time on the dash was only a tenth off, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good there. And then they said I beat the 5, but then the 24, he picked up like a half a second. I don't know how. So it was cool to start on the front row. I think
push the pass button, dude.
Yeah, something. I don't know if he skipped a corner or what, but he was definitely picked up a ton of time because I think the round before that he was only 8th or 9th. So, yeah, it would have been cool to start on the pole, but starting on the front row is still super cool. I think that's probably the most nervous I've been qualifying in a long time. So it was pretty cool.
Most important thing you just said there was skip a corner of all things. Is that what he just said?
Wow, that's interesting. That came up, but
already.
I was talking to our friend Clark, Jeff, and I know you have your Ford Performance School deal and everything, and it's interesting. He was talking about how much you actually work there and help those guys out a lot, and I think that's kind of translating a little bit too, right?
Yeah, a little bit. The road course deal starting out, I had a lot of fun doing it, but I was terrible at it. I mean, I'd go everywhere 3-4 seconds off, having a blast, but not going anywhere. And I want to say 2018, Ford had me go run some IMSA stuff and ran 7, 8, 9, 10 races and felt like that helped quite a bit. But the biggest thing was my teammate was Austin Cindric, who was teammates a lot with me in the NASCAR stuff, and he's probably one of the best road racers I've ever seen. And he just would teach me his ways, and having data in the IMSA stuff, I could go and compare and ask him questions. And I'm sure he kind of regrets it now because it seems like last year in the Xfinity deal, we were always racing for wins on the road courses, and then now we still are always battling up front on them. But yeah, without him and Ford sending me to do that IMSA stuff, I for sure would have had a hard time, I think, on any of the road course stuff. And then, like you were saying, the Ford Racing School is right there at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, and I live 5 minutes from the place, so. I'll go over there and just run their cars around the Roval or whatever, and it's good to go over there and excited to have you come down here in a couple weeks and try it out yourself.
Yeah. I don't want to show you up or anything, but
You're having fun.
But I'll be there. Do you have helmets that'll fit me?
Oh yeah.
Do I need to bring? I'm not sure about.
We're
that.
hauling the mail, I know,
cue ball helmet, open face, cue ball helmet.
Oh, it'll be the open face for sure.
They're gonna have to rip all the lining out. Like, don't hit anything that hard, okay?
Clark wrecked one.
I heard this, yes.
Not wrecked it, but he scraped it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to do any of that, so that'd be good.
We'll get you a football helmet. We can find you a football helmet that'll fit.
Yeah, that'll be great. That'll look
I'm telling
super.
you, it's like the racing school. Like, you go to a lot of these racing schools, they kind of tone you back a little bit. They don't want you to really run them. So, like, the GT500 is 760 horsepower.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can have this thing up to 170 mile an hour just bearing it off into the bank. I mean, they don't care. Just as hard as you want to go, you can drive them. They go out, they'll show you kind of how to do it. But then at the end, you get a session to yourself. I think 2 sessions to yourself. I mean, you can drive that thing as hard as you want. Nobody's out there riding with you. Nobody's on the track with you.
Wow.
It's pretty wild.
So my son was running the BMW Performance School out here at the Speedway just a couple of weeks ago before you guys got here. And same thing. I mean, the cars, they're not that much horsepower, but they're 525, 550. I mean, they're legit cars. And then they brought out some GT4 cars, legit race cars that people could buy and do lead follows, and then they turn them loose, like you said, at the end of the day. So, yeah, they balled up a couple of them. They put them in the wall, coming back onto the straightaway. Yeah. You know, and they get sideways and try to catch it and then death hook it into the wall. And
not a good day. Not a good day at the school.
That's like the old Pass Masters. Remember that when they'd run those?
Oh, yeah.
At IRV?
Yeah.
Dave Marcus and all those guys, they would destroy those Jags. These were like,
I heard stories about that.
Like, it was amazing, and they would get out of them. I mean, they would wad up $100,000 worth of stuff. These cars were like $500,000 cars. They would wad them up, and they just get out of it. Dick Trickle was one of them, and I mean, they would destroy these cars. And it just kind of happened the way it happened. It's like, man, who expected? They had to ship all the parts from overseas. What a great series!
Real race car drivers and expensive cars is just not a good recipe. For success. Somebody's going to spend some money.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's go back and talk about the race a little bit. First of all, let's take a step back. As Michael Young was pointing out before the show, you won here in the Xfinity Series in 2020. How much do you think that really helped you out here? Do you feel like you had a little bit of an edge? I mean, I know those guys are fast. They adapt. They learn quickly. I'm sure the sim, everybody spent plenty of time in there. But to actually be on that course in one of those cars and to capture a win had to at least bring some confidence to the table.
I think for sure. You know, anytime you can go back where you've won before, you kind of have a little bit of extra confidence. But, you know, for me, you know, the Cup Series, everybody's so good. You know, we had 50 minutes of practice this week, which we normally don't have, and they figured it out pretty quickly. You know, I think the good thing for me was in practice, you know, I could focus on my car. I wasn't out there trying to learn the racetrack. I already knew the racetrack, knew where I needed my car to be good. And our car was off in practice, so I think that allowed us to really focus on trying to make the car better, which was huge for us. So, yeah, I think, you know, it helped me a little bit, you know, just in practice trying to kind of tune our car to what we needed. But once the race started, all those guys knew where they needed to be, knew where the speed was. And a lot of them guys ran the Xfinity race as well, you know, this past weekend. So they had a lot of laps.
And I got to tell you, you guys were hauling the mail. I mean,
couldn't believe how much faster the Cup car felt than the Xfinity car there.
And how much faster they looked.
Yeah.
Like when you guys, you know, where our turn 2 suites are, I'm telling you, when you guys would come out of the middle and grabbing gears all the way, I mean,
yeah, so in Xfinity, where you're talking about, we were all but wide open. I mean, you were wide open for a lot of the run, and then at the end, you had to start just barely feathering it. The Cup car, you were half throttle. I mean, that's all you could put down, or you were spinning the thing out. So it was cool how much faster we were going.
I saw a couple of times where guys were about to pitch in there, I guess, turning what would be off of turn 2 there, or the short shoot back in. It was pretty wild. I can't ever keep track of the turns. Michael was talking about something earlier. Oh, turn 8, 9, 10. I'm like, man,
I have no idea. I have a little map on my dash, and that's the only reason I know any of them anytime I go. I'll be talking about my car, and I'll be like, I think in turn 12, it's not very good. You know, I have no idea any of the numbers.
I don't know on that road course either. Typically, I do know most of those, but I don't know on that course. I've never had really much involvement there. But that short shoot that you're talking about, at least for IndyCar, is even if it's not a good passing zone, it's a really good pressure zone where you can get a run on someone in that long arcing right-hander, and then the tight right-hander, you can stick a nose in there or put a bumper on them, whatever the case may be.
It's probably the hardest corner, I think, of the whole racetrack because it's super flat on the entry because you're on the apron, but then you transition onto the banking, and then plus you're kind of riding that curbing, and what we had trouble with this past weekend is the brakes would almost knock back on those curbings.
Oh.
So then you'd go in to hit the brakes, but if you hit them before you got to the bank, it wasn't loaded up and it locked the right front up, or even if you didn't, it was hard. That corner is extremely hard, and there's no real – it's hard to tell how hard you can get into there because it just comes up so fast. And the other thing that's super awkward is everywhere else we go, you know, you're breaking the walls on the right. Well, that when you're coming out to the wall and it's on the left, and it's really weird for us, I think. Just you're not used to it. It's totally different.
What did you think of the fans? Seemed like there was a lot more people there.
I thought that there was more in the infield than I thought there would be.
Yeah.
But I almost thought the front straightaway would have a little bit more. But when you got down to turn 1, I mean,
packed.
it was
That's where
packed.
it was. Yeah.
Packed.
And then turn 4 of turn 1 of the oval and turn 4 of the oval, it had a lot of seating, but the front straightaway was a little less than I thought it would have been. But I think, as this place continues if we keep running the road course, you're going to see more and more fans come. I mean, obviously, if you like chaos and crashing, that was probably the race for you. It took us, I think, 2 hours to run 3 laps. So.
Well, I mean, that was the deal at the end. Was
my liver couldn't take too many more of those. I mean, it was
one more green white checker, dude, you're gonna blow a motor.
Hey, Ron, it looks like I got time for one more.
Yeah, Ron, I know I said one more about 4 times ago, but apologize. I'm going to need another one here.
So let's talk about the race here real quickly because you were up front pretty much all day long. Obviously, given the starting position, if I jump to the restart, which I think was about lap 21. Larson fed you a wheel right off the bat, so things got a little bit sporty down there into turn number 1, and you guys dealt with it. You obviously gave him a little more room once that happened, but down there through turn number 1, how did you feel generally speaking through most of the restarts?
Yeah, the restarts are nuts, and like you were saying, that really is what changed our race there early. We led the first 15 laps or whatever it was, and we flipped the stage, so we were going to come out leading that second stage. And under caution, I shut my car off to cool it off, and whenever I went to fire back up, it wouldn't start. So I didn't maintain pace, so I went from starting first to now starting 5th. And then you're back there in the hornet's nest, and Larson and a couple of us got into it with each other, and we really lost a lot of track position there. So that kind of changed our race. But, yeah, turn 1 is nuts on the restarts because it's, down the straightaway, you could run 4, 5, 6 wide. You get to turn 1, it's barely 2 wide you can run. I mean, really, there's only one lane from turn 1 to turn 2, and after that, it kind of widens back out. But it's a funnel. That whole racetrack is very much a funnel, into every corner. You have turn 1 like that. Turn 7, you can do the same thing at the end of that back straightaway. You can go really wherever you want. It's like a runway almost, and it comes down. And then that corner you were talking about, that apron, it's super wide, and then it comes down to a funnel as well. So that corner, or just that racetrack in general, is a lot of that. So I think that's why you have a lot of, action into the brake zones. Plus you have high speeds, and turn 1, we're probably 185 to 30 mile an hour. So there's a lot of heavy braking, and almost every corner there is like that.
So we're going to take a break here in just a moment. But a quick question before we do that. In terms of braking, how hard was it for you guys? A lot of a lot of people I know in sports cars. You mentioned IMSA before. When they come to this track, it seems like a relatively easy track. There are some really tricky turns there once you get on it. But the brake zones, for whatever reason, this track tends to create a ton of heat, and I think that turn 1 is a big part of that.
Yeah, we had a huge issue. This is the first race all year long that we've had brake issues. That middle stage of the race, and towards the end, 15 to go, I was running 30th, about 20 car lengths from going a lap down. We had no brakes. The thing was going to the floor. So brakes were definitely a huge issue for us. I don't think we were expecting to have that much heat. And I think early in the race, we burned our brakes up. We had a lot of grass on the grill and didn't clean it off because obviously we were in the lead, so it was hard to do that. And we probably got too much heat in our brakes. But, yeah, this place is extremely hard. They just don't ever have a chance to cool off. You have those straightaways, but after that, you're constantly on them, even in the slower stuff. So it's really hard on brakes.
So we're going to take a quick break here. Wanted to set that up for you because the brake zone and the use of brakes here at this track, which this track is just brutal on the cars, is a key part of the subject to talk about what happened here later on in the race. Stay with us. We'll get you the skinny on the end of what happened here at Indianapolis. This segment of the skinny is brought to you by Toyota. This segment of the Skinny is brought to you by Rhino Classifieds. Tired of all those ads and random stuff that shows up when you're looking to buy or sell your car parts? Rhino Classifieds was created just for you. Welcome to a streamlined buying and selling app created by racers for racers and race fans. Modified cars, classic cars, race cars, that special big block you need, the trailer to move your baby around the country in. We got you at rhino.co. Once again, welcome back to the Skinny. Ken Stout, Rico Elmore here. The track dude sitting just off camera. He looks best that way. But we want to focus here on Chase Briscoe, who has joined us here in the studio. He'll be running the BC 39 here tonight, so a busy schedule. You got to be looking forward to that, man. A lot of fun, huh?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to go back to what I grew up doing, my roots. My family's still heavily involved in it, and it's just fun. And the main thing is it's no pressure. You can go over there, and it don't matter if I run dead last or win the thing. At the end of the day, I'm owning the car, and I don't care where I finish. So it's fun to go over there and just have fun, not worry about it, hang out with my friends, and just have a good time.
So a lot of people might not realize it. We always see you at the Chili Bowl. You come out there and you have some fun. But your career started off behind the wheel of a 410 sprint car, the youngest winner, if I'm not mistaken, breaking Jeff Gordon's record by a clear year. You were 13 years old. You won behind the wheel of a 410. Your father with a lot of experience there, 5-time track champ at Tri-City. And your grandfather working on Rich Vogler, one of the best of all time, of course, and Dave Blaney's car. So your roots really are in that open-wheel racing.
Yeah, for sure. My grandpa started owning sprint cars in '76 and has over 600 wins as an owner. Steve Kinzer, Jack Hewitt, Rich Vogler, Doug Wolfgang, Blaney. I mean, a ton of the legends in sprint cars drove for my grandpa.
A couple of guys you may hear.
Yeah, a couple guys that you may have heard of
before. They've been mildly successful.
I mean, they were kind of good about it,
Yeah, so
and Kinzer did it while smoking a cigarette. I mean, hell.
Got to put a cigarette lighter in there in his car. He's like,
I'll never forget the first time I saw Steve Kinzer. I was probably 7, 8 years old, and we were at Lawrenceburg, and I didn't realize he smoked. I'm like, wait, he smoked cigarettes? He was in the driver's
like
meeting.
Like a chimney, dude.
I had no idea.
and drinks Bud Diesel by the case.
But yeah, my grandpa owned them, for 40 plus years. And, my dad raced for over 20 years, had, I think, over 250, 300 wins as a driver himself. So kind of came from a natural racing background and ran sprint cars since I was 13. Started doing some mini sprint stuff, before that. But sprint car is what I did from when I was 13 and still doing now. Just ran Paragon last Friday night. So try to run a sprint car as much as I can still.
So I actually read a little bit where it said where he didn't want you to race. Initially did not want you to race.
Yeah, my dad did not want me to race at all. So my dad, obviously, he was racing, and one night, I think it was at Bloomington, which was our home track, this lady came up to him and was like, hey, when are you going to let Chase start racing? He said, oh, I'm not going to. I don't want him to. I don't want him to, risk it, or I just don't think he needs to be doing it. And she told him a story about how her son wrote this paper in high school about how he was racing sprint cars, and the teacher gave it an F, and it was an A or B paper. So she took it to the teacher and was like, hey, why did you grade this an F? It's clearly an A or B paper if you look at just the writing and everything else. And she said, well, I don't think it's right that you let your kid risk his life. He could get killed or hurt or whatever. And so then she took it to the principal, and the principal said the same thing. This is easily an A or B paper. Not sure why she gave it an F. And, long story short, the teacher's kid, a couple weeks later, gets picked up for drinking and driving underage. And the mom told my dad how, for her, she knew where her son was every single weekend. He's at the racetrack. During the week, he was at the race shop getting the car ready, with his dad, with his grandpa. It just kind of resonated with my dad that it probably kept him out of a lot of trouble growing up.
Interesting.
Just kept him, had a close relationship with his dad because of it. And, to this day, I've never had a sip of alcohol in my life. I was never out at high school, going to parties. I was always at the racetrack. And, for me, my dad always made it pretty clear I had to make good grades, couldn't be out doing things I shouldn't be doing, or he was going to park the car. So probably kept me out of a lot of trouble as well. And obviously it's worked out now. But, yeah, he didn't want me to race at all.
I know I tried to convince my parents I should race, and they didn't let me. So, until I was old enough to buy my own stuff. But by then I had all the bad habits and all the things he just mentioned and everything. So, it's...
But I think a lot of parents have done exactly what your father did. My son races, very successful at this point, not to your level, but not for lack of trying to get to your level. It's just the way it's worked out. But I definitely used it against him, a couple of times where he tailed off the wrong direction. And you're like, man, if you want to go racing, you better start towing the line. And that racing was always great leverage, to bring you guys back. I mean, well, listen, we're all silly kids, man. And you tend to make mistakes from time to time. It's going to happen. But, boy, to have that leverage of a cool car and have a kid race in it to bring him back. And then the time spent with your son, from a father to a son, obviously, and to have your grandfather involved, too, when they were so successful. And then to see your grandson and your son have so much talent. There's not a better thing in the world. I get goosebumps talking about it. But it's so cool to them to enjoy that time with you, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's been cool, to be doing what I'm doing now and seeing my family. And, my grandpa doesn't get to go to very many races, but for him to be at Indy this past weekend and come, he wasn't going to miss that. My dad goes to a lot of the races. you know, my grandpa still loves racing. That's all he's done his whole entire life. So it's cool to, you know, kind of be that motivator for him to like stay healthy. You know, he wants to still be able to go to the races and watch when he can. So it's been really cool how close our family's still been. And, you know, a lot of that's probably due to racing. If we didn't have that racing, you know, there's times where I'm sure, same for you, you fight like crazy with your son, arguing back and forth. And I know at least for us, it's like that. But at the end of the day, the racing brings it all back together, even though you're arguing about racing.
Yeah, exactly. Are you talking about like this weekend or
yeah, just anytime. Like I'm sure tonight my dad's going to rip my rear end for what I'm doing on the racetrack. So that's just how it goes. But yeah, I think, you know, it is cool for them. And I'm going to have a son here in 7 weeks. So I'm excited to maybe have that happen for us too.
Congrats,
so
man.
I don't know. I'm going to be the same way. And I'm not going to push the racing deal, but at the same time, I feel like it obviously has kept my family super close and kept me out of a lot of trouble. So if he wants to do it, we're giving it a try.
It's a big deal, and you know, I remember, of course, I remember watching your dad a lot. Okay, back in the day, and then I remember when you started kind of coming into it, and then you know what really caught my attention with you was when you did, was it Champion spark plugs?
No, the Peak stock car thing.
Peak. I was so blown away. I don't know. I can't remember if I texted your dad or called him, but I told him, I said, I'm just absolutely, you know, you were not the favorite.
No.
You were
No,
not the
at all.
favorite in that deal. It gets you recognized, and the next thing you know, you have these opportunities. That's your path. Okay.
Yeah.
We've already talked about that many times.
Like you were saying too, like, I mean, if you look at my resume, there's no way I should be a Cup driver. Like, it should not happen. I'm not a Kyle Larson resume, a Christopher Bell resume. You know, I didn't have, you know, all these championships and wins, you know, in sprint car racing or whatever, you know, but I just tried to put myself in the best situation I could. And after high school, moved to North Carolina, slept on a couch for 2.5 years, volunteered at different shops, and somehow convinced this team to let me drive for them, and won half the races that year and got me a Ford contract the following year. And, you know, it's progressed to where it's at now. And it's just crazy, you know, to have the doors that have opened that probably realistically should never have been open, and just being there and being present in the opportunity. Right. You know, I was the guy that was there working every day at the shop, and when they had a guy fall through, I was just naturally there to be the next guy in line. So it just was the right place, right time.
And what was the gentleman's name that owned it? And I'm gonna, as soon as you said,
Briggs Cunningham.
Briggs, yeah. And so you know, we ran Cody and I guess what would have been some of his
old stuff. So Chad Bryant was my crew chief, and he bought the team from Briggs Cunningham, and he went and ran Iowa.
Yep. And what a great bunch of guys.
Yeah, they're fun.
And had stories about you that I'll leave off the air now.
Sure. Chad was actually the best man in my wedding. Like, I mean, like,
I
we're
love
still
it.
talk all the time.
Dude,
that group was.
He told me about Daytona when you were leaving pit road. Can you explain what happened?
So ARCA has this crazy rule. You know, it isn't like a sprint car or a midget where you can just take the wheel off, put it back on. Well, I didn't know that at the time. So in ARCA, if you stop after you leave pit road, you go to the tail. Where in NASCAR, if you leave pit road at the beginning of the race and your wheel's not straight, you can pull over, stop, get it set, keep going. So I'm rolling off pit road, starting third at Daytona. I think it's my 4th ever stock car race, and I'm starting third at Daytona. Well, my wheel is like literally like this. I'm like, I cannot run 200 miles like this. So I thought it was like a sprint car or midget. You can pop that thing off. It'll keep going straight. Well, all the caster, whatever they got in this thing, I pull the wheel off. I mean, 90 degrees left. Luckily, I didn't start in the outside lane, or I would have wrecked half the field pulling off pit road. So I'm trying
and he said he just kept it from the wall. Just barely.
I mean, barely missed the wall because I wasn't going to stop. I was like, I got to keep this thing going. So I'm trying to get the wheel back on and barely rolling. I get it back on. Well, now it's like upside down completely. I end up stopping because there was like no way I was going to race with like this and start dead last. And I think we still finished 3rd or 4th, but he was so mad at me.
He was pissed. And he told me, he goes, we would have won that race. We had the best car. And so he came in, and I said, what happened? Like Chad's asking him, what happened? I can't remember. He said you gave him some bullshit story, and he's like, You took the steering wheel off to straighten it up. I know what happened. I mean, he called him out immediately on it.
Me and Chad, we still have a great relationship. He was the one guy that would always like just tell you as it is.
Right.
I mean, he would flat out tell you if you were doing something wrong. And at Pocono, I maybe didn't even have 10 starts, and we're at Pocono. And he kept telling me, you got to arc into the corner. And I mean, I'd never been on anything bigger than half my other than Daytona.
Pocono's tricky,
Yeah, it's
man.
super tricky. And he's like, you got to arc in. And I started arguing with him that it was too tight. And he's like, no, you're too loose. That's why you're not arcing in. I was arguing with him. I didn't really know at the time what I needed. I was just thought I knew what I needed.
Right.
Well, we had this engineer that Chad did not like at all. Well, he sees me over in the corner telling the engineer how tight I am and using my hands. He comes over there and starts cussing me out. Picks me up by my uniform, slams me up on the side of the trailer, and starts like ripping me. Oh shit! And the general manager, Paul Andrews, he was Alan Kowicki's crew chief when they won the championship.
Right.
Comes out and yells, "Chad, chase!" And I'm like, "Oh, thank God, he's going to save me." He says, "Take it in the trailer if you're going to rip him like that." So he grabs me by the back of the neck and pulls me in the trailer, and I got my ass ripped.
That's great stuff.
Yeah, when we ran at Iowa with him, we had some. It was good. So
On that right there, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back on the other side, it'll be the final segment. We'll find out what happened at the end of Indianapolis. Stay with us. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Dream Giveaway. Dream Giveaway has been giving away high-end American muscle cars to raise money for charity since 2007. Dream Giveaway is known for giving away classic and new muscle and paying the federal taxes so the winners don't have to. For $25, you can jump in the game, and part of that goes to charity. You'll have a chance at winning some of the coolest cars on the planet. Check it out at dreamgiveaway.com. We've been having a great time here with Chase Briscoe on the set of The Skinny, Ken Stout, Rico Elmore as well, and we'll get back into what happened here at Indianapolis. Of course, the hottest topic in NASCAR right now was the finish of that race in Indianapolis for a couple of different reasons. We'll cut back into this thing, Chase, and help us through it. With about 6 to go, you roll up on the inside of Denny on one of those restarts. Going into turn number 1, but never touched him. You ran him about as clean as you could run anybody. With 5 to go, Hamlin was leading, so it was Hamlin, you, and Larson. You guys all survived the curb, but the 24 car caught the curb, ripped the bottom off of somebody's car.
We got a ton of damage. I think the curb had peeled up the lap before. I came through, and it felt like a bomb went off.
So it did hit the bottom of your car,
yeah,
too.
so it ripped the whole pan off of my car as well, and the splitter. And
Is that what caused problems?
I think that's what caused the problems for all them guys, is when I went across it ripped it all out of mine, and then whenever my pan and splitter was sitting there, it probably ripped the oil pan out of Williams' car, and then all the oil and everything else.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, those curbs were no joke in the first place, but then when they started peeling up, it was hairy.
So needless to say, for the folks that didn't watch it real quickly, they actually ended up pulling the curb up. They left what I like to call the jump in place.
Oh, yeah, there was a full-blown jump. It was a jump.
I don't know if that's built into the asphalt or not, but honestly, I would have pulled everything up and let you guys use the asphalt, or brought a big bale of tires out, which somebody would have just stuffed it in the tires, I think, if they did that.
I think the one that they had there, like, as long as you didn't get forced over there, like, you weren't going to hit it. And I even took my wife the next day. We were driving over to the dirt track to look at it, and I said, feel how big this thing is. And I never hit it, slow. And just in our rental car. I mean, it was like at 4 miles an hour. I mean, it like freaking launched.
But you just said the key words there, and a lot of the people are like, "Oh, those dumbasses! How come they keep doing that?" And the conversations that we've had, clearly we get it. It's like if you're mid-pack, you don't go out there and hit it on purpose. Somebody's shoving you out there.
For one, you can't see them.
You're tucked up behind the car.
When you're
in front of
behind
you.
somebody, you can't see nothing. So
and then if you're too wide, somebody's shoving you.
Yeah, too wide there. I mean, if you go too wide through there and don't hit anything, I don't know how you do it, because it's impressive. It's just so narrow through there, and obviously when they pull that one curb out, you watch the next restart, we all missed that next one by that much.
Right.
You give us that advantage. It's faster the straighter you can make
Absolutely.
that thing. So that's why the curbs are there in the first place. But yeah, it's hard to see if you're in the mid pack. I mean, even if you're in second or third, it's hard to kind of see them if you're right on the guys. So That's the hardest thing is just not being able to visually see him. I don't know if you could put a tire barrier there. That'd obviously be a little bit easier to see, but it's hard. I mean, to see, especially when you're back there in the pack.
So we go to the second to last restart, and I found this one kind of interesting. Hamlin leading, out on the point by himself. You're P2, Larson's P3. You guys get a run down into turn number 1. My guess is your spotter was talking to you, trying to fill you in on some of it that was going on, but Larson at the last minute, he was rolling up into turn 1. Nice brake zone for him, but went up high because Kurt Busch had a big run all the way out by the wall. So he wanted to kind of slow him down. Last second, Kurt hits him in the back. Now he can hardly make the turn. You eat a bunch of the curb on the bottom. The 21 car comes in the middle, but because you ate the curb, you left enough room for the 21 and the 5. So you go through there clean again, this time 3 wide. So, I mean, I applaud you for the effort, but is the spotter talking to you, telling you, like, you're going to go 3 wide here?
Nah, I don't think so. I remember that restart. I think Larson actually started second because I was running second, and they put him ahead of me for some reason.
Oh, so, I was actually curious about that.
Yeah, I started third.
You were on the
I started
bottom,
behind
though.
Denny on that restart. I started right behind Denny.
Oh,
and
so
then
I
tried
took
to
him being outside as being third. That's what I...
Yeah, so it was Denny and Kyle in the front row. I was behind Denny, and then I think DeBenedetto was outside of me. And I remember I tried to outbrake Denny, got down in there, and then I had to use the curb to kind of try to stay off of him. And then DeBenedetto, I think, ran Kyle off the racetrack, if I remember right. But yeah, the restarts there at the end.
Yeah, so he did get a little bit of Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle ended up falling
Kyle
back
went to like
7th place.
second place to 7th or 8th. I mean,
But it
he
was
got
really
swallowed up.
because of the hit from Kurt. Kurt hit him, and then he could barely make the turn, so he had to check up to keep the car on the track.
Yeah,
and
I
then
haven't seen
everybody
that
just
part.
rifled underneath.
I know
him,
that DeBenedetto was beside me. I remember that much. And I remember Larson was outside of me, or outside of DeBenedetto, I think.
Right.
But all I know is I remember Larson was second, and then I looked up when the caution came out, and he's like 8th or 9th.
So, and then, of course, that brings us to the final restart.
Yeah, an hour later.
Unfortunately.
An hour later and
2 cocktails later.
several big cocktails later.
So, speaking...
I was a nervous wreck, by the
We
way.
were parked right in front of you, too.
I know. We were over there yelling at you. Trust me. If we'd had a megaphone, we'd have had it going over there. But
So that final restart, Denny gets a good restart again, and in the brake zone, and we talked about that a little bit earlier in the show, what you guys were dealing with. Now, granted, a lot of time for those things to cool off.
When they cooled off, we were good for 3 or 4 laps, I felt like. And that last restart, our first gear ratios were terrible for restarts. I mean, we would get pulled car length and a half, 2 car lengths every time. And Denny, on that last restart, I kind of tried jumping him, and then I had to lift a second to give it back. And then we fired at about the same time, but just his ratios just pulled me so much better. And then he was about a car length and a half, I would say, ahead of me as we hit the brake zone. And I was able to outbrake him.
You did.
I mean, I was able to almost get my right rear to his left front. Then we got down in there, and obviously I realized I was not going to make the corner once he was leaving me. And how turn 2, or I guess it'd be turn 1 still, it kind of has like an excess runoff.
Yep.
But then the curb comes back in for 2. So where that was, like right where me and him were meeting each other. So there was no way I was going to make it. And then with our left front splitter, had that big pan turned out. I tried to turn the thing left and hit it as straight as I possibly could, because if I hit it at an angle, I knew it was really going to be screwed up bad. And I didn't know at that time that the pan was ripped out too, so that would have made it a little bit better. But I tried to make it as straight as I could, and then we went through the turn 2, I guess. You know, I'm in the grass, he's on the racetrack, and I came out. I remember I looked in my mirror, and I'm like 4 car lengths ahead of him. And I was like, oh, that's not going to fly if I'm 4 car lengths ahead of him, obviously. So I literally backpedaled, let him get up beside me, and I was like, I'm just going to let him go, because I knew I was better than him on the whole back half of the racetrack, and all day long, that was where my strong suit was. I was good off of 4, but the 6 through 12 was like where I was money at. So I get in behind him, and obviously go down the back straightaway, and then we get into 7. He kind of misses it on the entry, outbrakes. He was trying to outbrake me. Got in a little too hot. And I think at that time he had 11 laps on his tires. We had 6. And then the rest of the field was on stickers. So they were coming quick.
oh boy,
Super quick.
yeah.
So we get down into 7. And, he kind of misses it, tries getting back. And through that 8, 9, 10, everybody kind of runs different lines. You know, in 7, some guys would go in there and turn in early, hit the curb. Then they'd be way far right for the 8, 9, 10 deal, where like I almost squared up. And I get way left, and that allows me to get so much more speed to the 8, 9. So I ate him up. I mean, he was like 2 car lengths ahead of me. I'm to his bumper. And in 10 last year, me and Cindric would like go back and forth. Guys would get lazy, and into that 10, you could shoot underneath them because everybody tries to swing back out, and then they try to turn into 10 and get a good run off for that little straightaway. Well,
and
Denny,
when they swing out, you could dive underneath them.
The restart before, he did a huge swing out. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get him right here. And especially as soon as I closed as much as I did through 8 and 9, I was like, oh, if he swings out, like I got him. So he goes to like swing out, and I go to gas it. And as soon as I gas it, he goes to swing out, and I go to turn off right, and I hit him like right on the 3/4 side of his right rear quarter, and it spins him. And it was the slowest spin I've ever seen in my life. Like I don't really even know how it turning, to be honest with you. And then obviously he spins, and then they're yelling at me that I have a penalty. So then I drive it so far down into 12 and try to get my penalty back there. They don't like that, and then bring me down pit road and park me for the rest of the race.
So let me ask you a question. Let's go back to turn number 1. You never mentioned the 21 car. Did he not tag the back of you?
I didn't. I never felt it. If he did,
it certainly looked like he got in the back of you and tightened you up just a little bit.
When you ran it all the way down the front stretch, that's where you went through, right? Is that where you were trying to do your drive-through penalty at the end?
I went down pit road at the end.
No, or I mean, not at the very end.
The turn 12 deal where there's like that big excess deal?
Yeah.
Yeah,
didn't you smoke it down through there? Because I remember.
locked the right front up all the way down in.
Yeah.
So apparently you were supposed to stop in turn 10. So like I was saying earlier, I had no idea what the numbers are on them until I looked down at that thing. And right when I got into Denny, they were like, stop, go, turn 10. And as I entered, right where you guys were, I came over the radio.
So they were stop, go because you got into it.
Because apparently I'd cut through the corner, is what they were saying. But after the race, they told me if Denny would have hit me and it knocked me off, then I wouldn't have got a penalty. So the way I was thinking in my mind is, well, I was forced off. And plus I gave it back. You know, that was my big thing is like, if I would have came out 4 or 5 car lengths ahead of him and just kept digging, like, obviously you're going to have a penalty.
It. Yeah.
But I didn't think I was going to because I didn't gain anything. I didn't lose anything. I was, you know, we went into the corner. I was a little ahead of him. I came out a little behind him. And, you know, right when I got into him is when they said, hey, you have a penalty. So then I came over. They said stop and go and turn 10. And I came over the radio as we went through what is 10 and onto that little short shoot deal. And I hit the radio and I said, where's 10? And then obviously I knew once I looked down at my thing as we were going through that corner that was 10. So then I just drove it down into 12, got it locked up, sat there and stopped. And then they were like, no, you got to bring it down pit road. And then that was the end of the race.
Who's making that call? Race control?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know who at NASCAR. They have different people, but yeah, somebody up in race control.
You know, here's the thing about it that you know, one, when Denny got turned, I mean, it wasn't what you were trying to do. I mean, it wasn't like you were
I've told everybody, if I win a race and cup, you know, at that point, I didn't even know I had a penalty. So if I win a race and cup, I don't want to do it because I wrecked somebody. I want to do it because I legitimately won the race.
Right.
And if I was trying to wreck him, like I would have wrecked him right when I came back on the racetrack.
That'd have been a long time ago.
If I wanted to really wreck him, which I wasn't mad because
there was plenty of opportunities because you guys were right there.
I could have at any point, but I didn't feel like I needed to, and I wasn't like I heard Logano talking the other day that I was seeing red. I wasn't seeing red because if I was Denny, I would have done the same thing. Like we're racing. You know, his job's to try to win the race, do what's best for him. My job's to do what's best for me and try to win the race.
Right.
So if I'm starting on the inside, you know, I'm going to try to use as much of the racetrack as I can. And if you go back and watch the Xfinity race from last year, when I passed Allmendinger, we go through turn 1, same thing. Turn 2, I kind of ran him wide and kind of ran into the grass. And that's the same thing Denny did with 5-6 to go. When you were saying I got in there beside him, he ran me off in 2.
Yes.
I did the same thing the year before. Like
so now you know he's got to touch you when you go flying out into the grass instead of avoid the.
That's why I told the NASCAR guy. I said, okay, so I just need to let him hit me next time, and then we would have been good to go. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't mad. I mean, I had no reason to be mad. We're racing. You won't ever hear me argue about or be upset or mad about racing hard. That's the one thing that drives me nuts with the Cup guys. Like if you drive them and race them hard for 5-10 laps, like they're so mad, flipping you off. That's what my job is. My job is to not let you pass me.
But that's what the show is, and that's what some of them don't get. That's the show. What was going on up front there was the show, okay? And there was probably nobody, and I mean, I didn't get to watch the footage. I know, Michael, you were there. But I don't know if anybody was sitting down at the end of it because it was, I mean, they were going wild. Just one, home state guy, hometown kid, I mean, it was.
It would have been cool if I won. I know that. I looked when I
Yes.
took the lead on lap 3, I think it was. I looked up, and it was like the coolest thing in my life. Leading to Indy in the Cup race would have been a little cooler if it was on the oval, but seeing the crowd come to their feet, like that was the coolest thing ever.
But I get the oval thing, but you guys put on a way better show.
Yeah,
the road course
the road course puts on a way better race, but I mean, everybody asks, like, should it be at the oval or the road course? The oval obviously has more prestige, more history.
Sure.
I mean, it's no secret. Everybody would agree with that. I think
Right.
all of the drivers, if you had your choice to win, would rather win on the oval.
You already did that
But
once.
you brought up a good
Not
point.
the oval.
You brought up a good point earlier in the show whenever you said it felt so much faster in the Cup car than it did in the Xfinity car on the road course. What the fans are used to here are watching IndyCar go
Yeah,
240
which looks
miles an hour, and the Cup cars look slow, and that's been the issue.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, the road course does put on good racing. It's
it's
exciting,
great.
Oh, it's
especially if you
awesome.
get one of those late race restarts. I mean, everybody's just driving in so far into the corners trying to outbrake each other. You just get a lot of good action. But I mean, for me, going back to the road course versus the oval thing, to me, if you are growing up in Indiana, for me, if I just get a race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it's special. Whether it's the dirt track tonight, the road course, the oval, the quarter midget kids in the parking lot.
Right.
Like, you still
Right.
drive through the same tunnel. You're
Yep.
still at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You just ran on a different racetrack. So, like, for me, I mean, I kind of like it on the road course because I feel like it gives me a better opportunity to win. Where on the oval, I don't know if we would have that good of a shot because it's very, very just car dependent. Like, if your car's good that
Yeah.
day. Where on the road course, you can, like, I feel like as a driver, you can kind of control a little bit more. So I like that side of it. But, I mean, yeah, obviously, if I could choose, I would rather win on the oval. But I
Sure.
still want Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So it's like, who cares?
We'll wrap things up here. I definitely learned a lot. I really thought the 21 car got into the back of you, and that was
He
a big
may
reason
have, I
why
don't
you
know.
went through the grass. So
I'll have to watch it. I didn't feel it, if so, but, I mean,
I learned a little bit.
Hey,
You might want to watch
Hey,
it.
quit stirring this shit.
Oh, just telling you.
No,
I
I
said I
mean,
learned something. My job to stir a little fish from time to time, anyways.
And I want to thank you for your partnership with us
yeah,
for so long.
I
and-
appreciate you guys. I love being with people that get racing, and especially for you. Like, you come from sprint car, you get the sprint car deal. You're right here in Indiana, so it's easy.
Yeah, but we appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you for
I
being a
appreciate
great
you guys.
ambassador for us.
Thanks a lot. Best of luck in the rest of your rookie season here.
Yeah.
And it's a shame things didn't turn out a little bit better for you there at the road course, but to qualify where you did, to run up front like you did, certainly proved that you've got the talent. You belong to be in that field,
I
man.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great stuff. Chase Briscoe, ladies and gentlemen, and now you know the Skinny from Indianapolis. Thanks for being with us here on the Skinny. This episode has been brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, Dream Giveaway, and General Tire. For the latest in sunglasses, optical frames, accessories, and apparel, be sure to check out fatheads.com. That's Fatheads with a Z. Production facilities provided by Fatheads Eyewear Studios. All rights reserved.